Hello, this is Jovino Santos Neto for Piano Groove. Today we're going to talk about composition. That is a very mysterious subject for a lot of people. I mean, if you've never composed before, or if you find yourself being amazed at how do they do this? Where does it come from? Well, I'm a composer, and that's something that I do all the time. And like anything else, composition is a practice. For some people, it might be something that, every once in a while you get, as in the lightning strikes, and you get a flash of an insight in which you can come with this beautiful piece of music. That happens too. It's great. But it will happen more often if you know how to set up the right tools to compose with. And the three basic tools of a composer are very simple. One is called melody, one is called harmony, one is called rhythm. A good composition will have those three things in different amounts. Some pieces might be more rhythmic, more harmonic, more melodic. Some pieces can be fast, some are slow. Sometimes it's a piece that's supposed to be fast, but you compose it very slowly. So let me try to give you some of the tools that I use. For me, the most important one, and that has made the big change in my own personal way of composing, is the melodic aspect of it. Because as a pianist, you were taught to play, you start to play all these scales and things like this, or then arpeggios of some sort of another. So the sad thing is that even though those things are very important for the piano, they're not very melodic. So I found that for me as a pianist, what worked really well was to actually use my voice as a melodic engine. So rather than having my fingers kind of like noodle around the keyboard until I found something that I liked, I reversed that process and I said, I'm going to hear a melody and then I'm going to try to hum or sing that melody. And then I'm going to try to find what notes they are using my fingers. And that's the beginning. So if I would just go, I was singing this octave. I found the note. You see, it took me a couple of tries, but I go, now that I have that, we are developing what's known as a motif. A motif is like a template. So if I have, that's a little section there. And I started with this. So this sounds like it's in the key of C major because I'm only using white notes, right? Actually not. So when I go, I'm going to look at other chords that can support these notes. For instance, I'm just B flat major. Right? Oh yeah, look at this. So now I'm finding different chords that are not in the key of C major. So this is one of the tricks, is to have a tonal melody with a polytonal harmonic concept. That way I'm creating something which is not necessarily in any particular key. I could also do this being. This would be a very traditional, known as diatonic, in which I can use 1, 6, 2, 5. We talk about that's one way of doing. Given my own personal preferences in music, I like to do this. And then I can do, I have so many ways of going. I went from a B flat to an F major 7. And then I go, ooh. You will also notice that I have a particular preference for actually using that tritone as being a relationship between the melody and the harmony. Like, that's what I'm talking about. So that's based on the Lydian concept. We can talk about this some other time, but this is like it's a main inspiration source for me, is to find ways to not double the bass with any notes that are particularly happening at the melody at a time. So if you notice, there's no B flat there. The B flat's only on the left hand. Same thing here. See, I skipped the F. If I would have played an F, I'd probably come up with a different chord. And then I go to G. And then, at this point of the composition, I could go so many places. One thing that for me is very important is to find, see, I started to put a groove to that. I'm basically playing a samba now. So the moment I inject some kind of a rhythmic feeling, it could be a variety. I happen to be from Brazil, so for me it's very easy to look into my pockets of Brazilian grooves and find one that would work well. But I could also think of this as being a ballad or being a straight ahead jazz piece. So in other words, you can write in a variety of styles. So what I just demonstrated to you is how you could arrive at a compositional product by using the process of starting with a melody. And remember, the first thing I did is I say, that I use my voice to keep going. And once I already have practiced this enough that I can use my voice, and then my voice takes over quietly. And by the way, I am not a singer. I'll make this very clear. But I use my voice. You can pretty much say, if you listen to any of my compositions on anywhere where they're publicly available, that 99% of the songs you will hear were composed using my voice. And that is really important. So maybe that's not something you ever considered. You think it had to come from your fingers as a pianist. But I'll tell you, music comes from muse. And the old Greeks said always that the muse is that which whispers in your ear. And I'm always listening to the whispers of the muse. And maybe it's just me, but in a way, I use that as my inspiration. And otherwise, it could be I go to visit a beautiful place and I get inspired by that place. Or there's a particular history about something that I like to quote. Or maybe I want to play a composition that has a particular flavor, like a Middle Eastern flavor, or a flamenco feel, or maybe an Afro-Cuban feel. And all of those things have their own set. They're like languages. They have their own grammar and syntax. So it's always a good idea to study some styles of music, and not just to get kind of like the stereotype of it, but to get a little deeper into the essence of it. So those are good ideas for you to start your own composition. And I would make it a practice to every day compose a little bit. You don't have to write a whole symphony in one day. If you get one motif, look at what Beethoven did with it. That, he transformed that into a whole development. So when you are given a musical idea or a concept, a motif, a melody, that usually what that means is that you're getting like a bundle, like a pizza dough, like a ball of dough. You have to open. Your job as the craft of composing means that you're going to extend that. You're going to take the piece, the intervals. Sometimes you invert, sometimes you augment, sometimes you reverse. So those are all techniques that are done so you have a melody. So that kind of ideas, there's so many ways in which you can take a melody and just give it some line, let the melody go. And you will find how creative you can be, but just like playing as if the melody will be a very elastic piece of dough that you're spreading out, as if you'll be opening a pizza. Then all you have to do is put your toppings in. In this case, we're starting with a melody. I harmonized it later and ended up putting the rhythm. The process could also be reversed. We talk about that to some other time. As I look at some of my compositions, I can pretty much explain what came first. Thank you so much for listening. It's Jovino Santos Neto for Piano Groove.